Hello and welcome back to another episode of Live on Location with Bowen and Mimi. I'd just like to take a moment to recognize that we are living gratefully on the unceded ancestral lands of the Silks Okanagan people. Today we are with Brigitte Red at Gallery Vertigo. Brigitte is a self-taught artist with a background in legal administration.
That's right.
And through your work with Gallery Vertigo, you've curated over 200 exhibitions.
At least that many.
At least that many. You've mentored emerging artists.
Yep.
And continue to do so.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And
hopefully.
you've also bridged the gaps between a lot of other nonprofits in the community. And
We try to collaborate with a lot of the arts and culture people here in Vernon. Things, people like AJ Yeager at the Kitani Center, Gail Woodhouse and Shauna Patno at the Vernon Community Arts Center, Donna Kennedy at the Vernon Public Art Gallery. So yeah, we try to form a family of arts and culture.
yeah, it's important to do that, especially in a smaller community, I think.
Yeah, it has to be, you have to work together.
That's right.
I
would love to hear how you first got introduced to Gallery Vertigo. What inspired you to become so deeply involved?
I'm not originally from here. I moved here to Vernon back in 2013. I had retired from my job as a legal assistant. And when I came up here, I wanted to find something that would allow me to get to know my community that I'd moved to. I really didn't know anybody here. My inroads was through my needle art and fabric art. So I met some people here and then discovered that there was this small gallery upstairs in this sort of funky, out-of-the-way place called Gallery Vertigo. At that time it was, and still is, run totally by artists and volunteers. And I was offered an opportunity to show some of my art at a fiber art exhibit. So I did. And that sort of took me into finding out more about what Gallery Vertigo does, who was involved, what volunteers might they need. And so I started volunteering, and from there, one thing led to another, and now I'm working as the curator here.
And I think it's been 6 years, 7 years?
It's been 20, I actually started, I was on the board of directors in 2015, and then around that time, the funky place, the neat little place, was sold, and the new owner decided they were turning it into a private residence. Mm-hmm. So we had to spend some time looking for a place to move to. And around that time, Gallery Vertigo was really struggling. It was starting to lose some of the credibility within Vernon, some of its own credibility.
Can you speak a bit more about that?
I think there was a general sense from the membership that the direction that Gallery Vertigo was going in towards mostly music and buskers, it was leaving behind some of our visual artists who were sort of the initiators and the precipitators of Gallery Vertigo to begin with. Right. So in looking for a new place, we wanted to find a place where we could accommodate both our visual artists and those artists that were musically inclined. So we did find a place, we moved there, and then through the help of some of local supporters, we were able to start building that credibility of the gallery again.
And diversifying.
And then we used to, at one time, do a lot of readings, poetry readings, literary readings. That had sort of fallen by the wayside, and then we started bringing some of that back. We're still at a stage where we're still trying to do that. We hope to be able to work with our neighbor, Bean Scene, because the Bean Scene's been doing some literary readings. They're running out of space, so we'll see.
That connection could happen again.
Could happen again.
Gallery Vertigo has that name, but it also has another name.
It does.
Yes.
The other name that it has is the North Okanagan Artists Alternative. That's the name of the society and the registered charity. And they are the ones that operate as Gallery Vertigo.
Right. And maybe you could explain about the mandate of that
The
society.
mandate of the society is to provide opportunities for artists that are emerging and trying to establish their career. So that, and our motto is art for all. The idea is that being a small town, we don't always get to experience some of the, what people would call way out art. We like to term it as innovative and unusual. And so that's another aspect of what we try to do here at Gallery Vertigo. Things like installation art, poetry readings with art, music with art. So it's to try to not only educate the artists that want to become professional artists career-wise, but also the public as to just exactly what is art.
What is art? And now we have AI, which is a whole other topic.
That's a whole other topic.
And it's one that's coming up a lot.
Yeah, it is coming up a lot. We're still sort of at the stages where we're trying to figure out where does Gallery Vertigo fit in with this. But some of the exhibits that were being proposed for the coming years, one in particular, we've got a high school exhibit coming up in January. And I noticed that 2 of the submissions are digitally created art. So we'll see how that turns out.
Right. So they were using AI and
They were using
prompts
AI and props and whatnot. And these are like grade 12, grade 11 students that are delving into that sphere. So yeah.
Right. Wow. So you do work with a lot of youth at Gallery Vertigo?
Absolutely. That's, let's face it, that's when we're gone, that's who's coming up next.
Succession
right?
planning, it's
Succession
important.
planning is important. And the youth are the ones that also haven't yet learned that, haven't yet discarded their imagination. You know, as we get older, we tend to be more critical of ourselves, whereas youth tends to just jump in with both feet and go for it.
Just jumping back again to when you moved Gallery Vertigo to the other location.
Yes.
Maybe we could go back to that place
Sure.
and give us a sense of what it was like to have Gallery Vertigo at that location.
At that location, it allowed us to actually be at street level, which wasn't the case at our first location. So it made it feasible for those with mobility issues to come and visit us, which wasn't always an easy thing at our initial location. It was a much bigger space, so it allowed for a lot more art to be displayed. It also provided a small area that was like a stage. So we were able to hold music events. On occasion, we had well-known songstress Melina Shine sing at the gallery. So the new space was larger. It also provided for a much more friendly atmosphere in terms of the space that was available for studio artists, which is another thing that we do.
Right. And how many artist studios were at that location?
At that location, we had, let me just think back, there were 6. There were 6 studios that we were able to rent out to artists.
Was it always easy to rent them out?
Initially, no, because initially people didn't realize that we offered that.
Okay.
But then as word got out that we did that, then yes, like for example, Destan Norris, who is well known in the area, she rented a studio from us for a period of time. Molly March, who is also involved with Caravan Theatre, She also rented a studio at one time from Gallery Vertigo.
I imagine then having the more established artists like that would draw in or legitimize artists to come.
It did. It certainly helped. And then there was another young woman. Name escapes me right now, but she started taking classes at the college, and she rented a studio, and she's doing quite well. She's now over on the island, so she's doing some artwork there. And then once that was established that we did that, it was no problem keeping the studios rented, none at all. And it helped. You know, most charity organizations struggle for funding and financial stability, so it sort of helped us along the way.
I was curious also about that, about the funding, about grants.
Most of our funding comes from, I'm going to say, 4 resources. We have membership fees that artists can join the society for a fee. Then our studio artists, their rent goes towards some of our funding to cover overhead. Then provincial and federal grants is another method, and then fundraisers. So those are our primary sources for funding. We have been approaching various corporate sponsors. Just to mention one or two, IG Wealth Management was a sponsor for when we moved to this location. Wayside Press, who does a lot of our printing, has been a sponsor for us. So we try to collaborate with the entire community. It gives a community atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. So the grants that you are applying for, there aren't many.
There are not many.
Are the
no.
other nonprofits in town also applying for those same grants? Is it a bit of a competition?
In some instances, yes, it is a bit of a competition because arts, through my own experience, I've learned that arts organizations tend to apply for grants with BC Arts Council, Canada Council for the Arts, mostly funding streams that relate specifically to the arts. What I've learned is there's other avenues for grants other than specifically for the arts. Things like applying for a summer student job program. So that's not necessarily through federal arts grants funding, but through employment. So there's other avenues for funding.
Right.
They're difficult to find.
Yeah.
We don't always find them, and we're not always successful. So, you know, there are times when it comes to the end of our fiscal year where we're going, are we going to make it? But,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, you have to stay on the ball.
All the time.
How many board members do you have now?
There's 5.
There's 5.
There's 5. We just finished working on putting together our new strategic plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's hear about that.
Well, our strategic plan, we had a strategic plan that was a 5-year plan. It ended, it needed review last year, and so we applied for funding to hire a facilitator to help us.
Yeah.
And so we've sort of done some of the preliminary footwork and the preliminary surveys of our members and people that visit the gallery and so on and so forth. And so we're now at the stage where we've put together our draft strategic plan for the next 5 years. So yeah, we're looking forward to getting that out there.
It's important to do that work, and it can...
You have to.
Yeah, and you can sometimes get so caught up in the busyness of the everyday and trying to find gallery sitters and volunteers to run the programs that can be left behind.
It does. If we hope to be able to use our strategic plan as a measurement tool of how well we are succeeding and meeting some of the goals that we've set for ourselves.
Right.
And without that strategic plan, you don't have a form of measuring.
Yeah.
So, you know, you do have to stay on top of it.
Yeah. Do you want to share some of the goals that have been set? Or?
Some of the goals are to involve youth much more, try to increase our fundraising activity. So that's just some of them, but yeah, there's others.
Right.
And keep them close to my chest.
Yes, of course, yeah. Okay, so again, back at the other location.
Yes.
On the ground level, and the studios are full.
Yeah.
And sounds like there was a good mix of different things happening
There was a good mix.
But you made a decision to make another location change. So how did that come about?
What happened was we were at the previous location to this one. We were there from 2017 until January of 2024. At the time that we moved there, it was a little bit off the beaten track, but people were still coming to visit. There was one of our neighbors across the street was the Georgette Shop, which is a thrift store for Canadian mental health. And then next door to us was another, not a thrift store, but it was a store that, that sold
Like
used items, like a
type?
consignment store. And it worked well for the first couple of years. And then the owner of the building sold the building.
Okay.
And then a new landlord took over. And that worked fine, but what ended up, that was during our last year. And in that last year, we were attempting to sign a lease with the new owner. Unfortunately, the new owner was unwilling to grant us a lease for any longer than a one-year term. And as a gallery, you have to be able to plan years in advance. And if we weren't given the option to renew after that 1 year, we were stuck.
Right.
So we made the decision we need to move to a place where we know that we are going to be there for an extended period of time. And as it turned out, this location, which used to be Expressions of Time bookstore, they chose to give up their lease. And we'd heard about it, so we kept our eyes open. And when the place was empty, one of our board of directors approached the owner of the building and said, "Hey, so here we are."
Turned out
It turned out beautifully because now we are on the main street through Vernon. We're what we like to think of as sort of the little cultural area. We have the town theater across the street, Bean Scene just next door, the Vibe, which is a sort of a consignment craft place, and restaurants. So yeah.
Yeah, and that financial institution that you mentioned earlier is across the street.
They're actually across the street. Yeah, so it kind of worked out.
It's a hub.
It's a hub.
Yeah. So when you made this final move to this current location, that was quite an undertaking.
It was an undertaking. We had several things to deal with. We had to notify our previous landlord, who was not happy with us moving, but so be it. Sign a lease with the current landlord, paint to get this gallery so that it was in gallery condition, get studios built for the artists that were coming with us, because the artists that were renting studios at our old location, we were concerned, well, when we move, are they going to come with us?
Right.
And they all said, yes, I want our studio space. So it took some time to, build rooms for our studio artists here. And it took 2 months for us. We moved in, we actually signed the lease, and our landlord was, he's one of our sponsors. He granted us 2 months to get the place fixed up. So we moved in February and we opened in April.
Congratulations. I did pop by. I think I helped on one day and I saw how hard everyone was working.
Yeah.
And there were costs to that move as well.
There
And
were, yeah.
as you mentioned, there were the building of the studios, and there was some painting that needed to be done. So were you able to get extra funding for that, or were people just volunteering their time?
Mostly people were volunteering their time to do the work. In terms of materials, we were able to get sponsorship for some of the materials that we use, like paint. Cloverdale Paint was a sponsor for our paint. There was a company out of Kelowna that allowed us, sponsored us for some of the drywall material that we used. And then most of the work was done by volunteers. We knew moving here that our rental costs were going to increase. So that was another aspect. We approached the Greater Vernon Advisory Committee, who provides us with funding through the RDNO for additional funding to meet that increased expenditure. And they were gracious enough to grant us the extra money. So it took a lot of work, but it all kind of all came together.
Yeah. Gallery Vertigo is always meant to be. I don't know. It's like that little train or engine that keeps going.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
the little engine that could.
It could, really. It is. It's that story.
Yeah.
I think it's been 15 years that I have been involved or coming and visiting it to Gallery Vertigo over the years in different locations. And it's quite awesome, really.
Well, we're going to be celebrating our 25th anniversary next year.
Okay.
So we're planning some exciting events, and we just hope that the communities will support them.
Well, they have so far over all these years.
This far, so you know.
Who were the initial founders?
The initial founder was Judith Jurica, and the reason I know that is from reading some of our archives. She did a fantastic job of keeping archives of some of the things that we've done. I believe at that time there was also Howard Brown. I'm just trying to recall. Jude Clark was another initiator.
I think Don Mattis.
Yes, Don Mattis, and Colleen Cooves, who has passed on. There were a number of people that sort of, again, got together, volunteered, and started it up. So yeah.
Yeah, it is important in the community.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that a lot of the bigger projects that I read about that Vertigo has put on over the years happened at your previous location, but the Wayfinder project?
The Wayfinder project, we've done projects associated with the Wayfinder.
Okay.
The Wayfinder it's hard to describe. The Wayfinder project is a method or a vehicle by which you can generate funding, activity, and collaboration. For me, that's the best way I can describe it. Okay. And usually that collaboration is with other artists and with other businesses. Mm-hmm. 3 of the projects that immediately come to mind that we've done is a project we called Sunflower Satellites, where we invited artists to come and pick up a used satellite dish.
Right, because what do you do with those things?
And paint them. Yeah. And paint them with sunflowers. That's why, hence the sunflower satellites. And then the idea is the artists were to take them to businesses that they knew to put up on their business and create an art trail.
Okay.
Okay. So that was one. And as it turned out, Vernon Teach and Learn has a satellite dish. It's yet to go up. The Wedge Cheesery has a satellite dish. Aesthetic Dental, which is a dental office. And I believe there's a law firm that has one of the satellite dishes
Okay,
too.
so this is still in motion.
It's still in motion. As a
Yeah.
matter of fact, we still have some satellite dishes down below that we've stored. So any business that's
Okay,
well
so we're
into-
looking for more businesses.
we're looking for more businesses.
Okay.
Okay. So that's one. Another item was the sunflower skirts was another one, where we invited fabric artists to participate in generating an exhibit that dealt with textiles and fiber art, and also involved sunflowers. And then I think the fourth one was an actual national exhibit. It was called Pause in Plight, and it was an exhibit by an artist out of Winnipeg who did a piece with the, I'm sorry, the name escapes me right now, but it's the Ukrainian Congress, I forgot now, but it was actually to bring to attention the historical significance of some of the internment camps here
Right.
in Vernon.
Yeah,
so
that was interesting. I actually learned quite a bit from that project.
yeah.
Just the focus is often on the Japanese internment camps. I didn't know that there was also
Yeah,
Ukrainian.
yeah.
Carrie Parnell? Is that
Carrie
her name?
Parnell was the artist, yeah, and we received some funding from the, I think it was called Canadian First World War.
I know. I think I had
I've
it down, but it
completely
would take
forgotten
me a
the
moment
name.
to
It's a very long name.
Yeah.
And they were very, very gracious.
First World War internment camps. No, I don't have. Government of Canada's New Horizons. No, it's a different one.
No.
Anyways.
At any rate, they were very, very gracious. And Gallery Vertigo couldn't have done that without the support of actually one of our local artists, Michelle Lockery. So, yeah.
Yeah, she's been involved in a lot of different projects in Vernon. I'm thinking of the mural projects, and recently there's been some, I don't know if I want to use the word controversy, but
There's been some concern about the loss, the potential loss of a specific, in this case, a specific mural that is actually in honor of Sveva Kitani. I feel uncomfortable speaking to that.
Yeah.
I think Michelle can speak better to that. But there's been some concern on our part that the murals in town, we've been losing them. When I say losing them, there's been what appears to be a lack of understanding that simply painting over a mural doesn't change our history, and it also shows some disrespect for the artists that actually did the mural. People think that it was Michelle that did the mural. Michelle brought a number of people together, youth in particular, to generate those murals. So we have to think of what are we demonstrating to our youth when we make light of the art that they create.
right.
But again, that's, it can be controversial, but it doesn't have to be.
No, I guess it just means more communication up front.
Absolutely.
What are the policies that have been
Yeah, absolutely.
put in place or not put in place
Yeah,
in order
yeah,
to protect
yeah,
them? And
yeah.
art does that. It stirs the pot often. Like I'm thinking of the behind the mask murals too.
Yes, yeah. And if, to my way of thinking, art is supposed to make you think. That's what art, when we talk about educating the public, that's what art is supposed to do, is educate the public about things that they may not know or that they may not see. And art says, look, pay attention to this. It's just a matter of taking the time to look.
And not shy away from tackling some pretty big topics.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
conversations can be difficult, but
Yeah.
to make progress, we have
That's
to
right.
talk about these things.
That's
sometimes.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
Hiding them doesn't help. Doesn't help the situation at the time, nor does it encourage future exploration. So,
Yeah.
but I'll leave it at that.
Sure, sure. Would you like to share any more about some of the programs that are existing now at Gallery Vertigo? Like I've noticed that there's the Creating Space. You have some dates coming up in January.
Creating Space is an event of the Catani Center.
Oh, look at right at the top. So again, this is just showing that I just grabbed this off the table. It was tiny. It's at the tiny corner.
Yeah.
But it shows how, these small nonprofit organizations are promoting each other and working in collaboration.
Yeah,
if I went to
absolutely.
the Catani, I'm sure there would be a little thing here that said Gallery Vertigo is offering these
Yeah.
programs coming
Well,
up.
Gallery Vertigo has worked with the Catani Center in the past. Some of the artists that are members of the gallery here have donated art to the Catani Center for their annual fundraisers. So the arts scene without groups collaborating and working together would be lost. Admittedly, Vernon likes their sports. They are a sports town, okay? And that's good. But any aspect of life has to be balanced. So, sports, arts,
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Well, we have a cultural center that is coming up, and it's going to be located just behind us here, right?
Yeah, the plans for the cultural center, as I understand them, will be just in behind us, a couple blocks behind us. They're still in the, apparently there's some design things that they're working out. There was just a notice that came out from the RDNO. But they're not expecting to break ground as soon as they thought they would be able to. And any time that art takes precedence in this city, we're behind it.
Of course, yeah.
So,
Okay, so I was trying to lead into an opportunity to talk about some programming that's going on at Vertigo.
that's right. We're now at the stage of planning some programs coming up. We have some ideas related to Winter Carnival, which is an event that happens in Vernon every year. And then Culture Days, which is an annual event nationally. We are extending our Clotho Festival, which started last year, and we're going to continue that again this year for Culture Days. And that particular program is involving new immigrants and involving them in some fiber and textile art, as well as some textile artists. We're still sort of at the planning stages of our strategic plan, so there are some programs coming out of that, which may not see fruition until the latter part of 2025, but at least we have a direction that we're heading.
Perfect. We have the right lady.
We try.
Yeah.
We try hard. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to make mention that we are sitting in front of
Yes,
one of the members.
one of our members, absolutely. Samara MD, this is the first time she has decided, through encouragement from one of our volunteers, to display her art. And she was really excited, and I'm happy for her because up until now, her art was in her basement, hiding. And as you can see, this art really expresses, when you look at this art, you're looking at Samara. That's her personality. She's lively, always happy, always smiling, and she's just and You can actually see her artist talk on our YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel that we put our artist talks on, and you can see her explaining how she arrived at her art. And she dabbles in just about everything. She dabbles in clay, she dabbles in collage, she dabbles in acrylics. So yeah, it's just been a really joyous exhibit to look at.
Yeah, it sure has. And I'm hoping that we have a chance to meet her too.
Yeah.
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 I just want to thank you so much for your time today, Brigitte. You are doing
Thank
incredible
you.
work here with the other board members.
Thank you
and
very much.
I
I
really-
couldn't do it without them.
Yeah, well, it's a team. It's a family.
That's right.
And
That's right.
yeah, Gallery Vertigo will keep on going.
We try.
Yeah.
We try.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again.